Ron Killings has been set free. Of course, it seemed like everything needed to crumble down with R-Truth being released by WWE, being brought back to the company, seemingly willed by the fans in the uproar. Is it a work? Is it a shoot? Well, by all accounts, it seems to be real. Unless you're Triple H with these comments from the press conference.
Whole part of the show, man.
The character of R-Truth has given WWE fans years of comedy, backstage segments, fun, antics, wild over-the-top characters and moments, and even fun moments like trying to win Money in the Bank in a Royal Rumble. But on Monday Night Raw, something different happened. We are now being introduced to Ron Killings. So I thought the Raw promo itself of Truth, Ron Killings coming out, standing on the announce table, thanking the fans, thanking R-Truth. Because of the fans, he was able to come back. But some of the comments that Killings made in this promo, I think were really interesting and really well done. While he thanked everybody and thanked R-Truth, he also talked about the negatives of R-Truth and what's wrong with him. Great line here was, R-Truth can be too forgiving.
Too forgiving.
Not me.
Not me.
And even in a backstage segment that WWE covered, they had him walking out with his hair in hand, and he said this:
I'm driving now, and I'm Ron Killings.
Cutting the hair on Raw, live, getting that reaction, that over-the-top moment, I think was incredible because it was actually getting rid of the R-Truth character. It's a physical change. It's not a metaphor for the change. It's not the traditional wrestling trope of we have a good guy, but now all of a sudden they're just gonna do bad things the very next week, and there's no context, rhyme, or reason. This is different because you do have the physical manifestation of it where he has literally cut his hair off, shedding himself of his former self or the other part of himself. The other half. Needing to get rid of the hair can kind of symbolize that he needs to kill, he needs to get rid of R-Truth in order for Ron Killings to finally be at the forefront. The physical change is a needed one, in my opinion, for this character to work. If you don't have it, you still run the risk of him trying to act more, because the hair, while maybe it seems simple and trivial, I think it plays a big role in how you can morph and change a character overall. It's done in movies all the time. You get a character change and something needs to happen. And within wrestling and WWE, it can be that Killings has now cut his hair. You could also be seeing things like all of his attire, his gear changes, his look overall, as well as theme music. Maybe Killings, I was gonna say R-Truth, but maybe Killings actually gets a brand new theme or no theme song. I think the days of what's up and singing and rapping, those days are over, because now we're dealing with Ron Killings. Killings' line, I think, is one that needs to be examined a little more closely because it can play into what we might see coming up or down the road with him in terms of who he could feud with, who he could be targeting. Because one idea could be that Ron Killings goes after everybody that has been in his way or took advantage of R-Truth, manipulated him, used him. And Ron Killings could be trying to be the justice in all of this, righting the wrongs. If R-Truth is too forgiving to everybody else, Ron Killings is the antithesis of that, and he's gonna right all of those wrongs for him. And that backstage moment of Killings saying, I'm driving now. Immediately, I started thinking of movie characters that have split personality, because that's what this really feels like, and I love it. You can do like a easy comparison of Jekyll and Hyde and doing that character split. Tyler Durden in Fight Club is a great one that I think they could pull a lot of examples from. Heck, even Gollum from Lord of the Rings has split personality, and it's the way that they framed it all that made it really interesting and compelling when the character is trying to deal with himself or the other half. I even feel like there's elements of the Joker in there that they could pull, like Heath Ledger's Joker, where it's not necessarily a split personality case, but it's unhinged and there's no remorse. He doesn't care about anything else. He wants to instill chaos just for chaos' sake. There are so many elements in here that if WWE does things right, and it's a stretch, but if they do things correctly, they could have a monster character on their hands. Because I think for a lot of us, including myself, I immediately thought, oh, okay, is R-Truth, Ron Killings, Is he going from good guy to clear cut bad guy? Is that what we're doing here? I don't think it's that simple, because I think WWE nowadays, and not with everybody, but with some of their characters, they like to play with them a little bit more and have a more organic change of character. Kevin Owens going up against Cody Rhodes for the better half of a year slowly transitioned his character to being meaner, more aggressive, and still feeling justified in his actions. Drew McIntyre is a great example of this as well. The big battle he had with CM Punk for almost a year, a lot of you can argue that Drew McIntyre is not the bad guy. If we rewind for a second and go back to Money in the Bank, where he took out John Cena, he hit him with the title belt. Is that necessarily closing the chapter on John Cena and now Ron Killings? I think Saturday night's main event closed the chapter on R-Truth. Now we're dealing with somebody completely different. If Killings has been set free, we're gonna see something entirely new. And I think that should also include a lot of different opponents, because it's still wrestling at the end of the day. We can have this amazing, compelling character, but at the end of it all, he's still gotta get in the ring and have a match with people. Now, I hope that for WWE, they don't do what they have done with the Wyatts and the Wyatt 6, because that has had moments, especially in the beginning when they were first introduced, where you could argue there's similar elements there with Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy, a split two personality type of thing, and they were playing into that a little bit, and they're starting to do a little bit more with it on SmackDown, but I felt like that they really dropped the ball with and didn't know what to do with that character and how to be creative with it. Ron Killings is different, but hopefully they can take the baton and run with it, with how organic this really does feel. But the question is, what opponents do you give Ron Killings? If I circle back to the point of him talking about how R-Truth was too forgiving and that he is driving now with this whole thing, Ron Killings could be doing stuff that's really interesting, like targeting old allies, people that were friends of R-Truth, maybe people he felt he was wronged by, that Ron Killings never agreed with, but R-Truth was happy to go along with. And that honestly could be just about anybody. You see, Ron Killings is not necessarily a bad guy or a clean-cut good guy. He's just himself. He's just him. So you could put him in situations where he does target good guys and bad guys. For example, before Truth was released, he was about to team up with Jimmy Uso. Now, do you think that's a good first feud for Ron Killings? I don't know, but I'm just bringing it up as an example of somebody that they could easily and very quickly pivot to, that maybe Killings takes out. He doesn't agree with Jimmy Uso, Big Jim, and that they were gonna be a tag team together, and that maybe Jim Uso was using R-Truth at the time to get that help. One feud, one dynamic that I'd love to see happen and unfold, Ron Killings and The Miz. I know The Miz is all wrapped up with Carmelo Hayes, but with this new character, and Killings could go from Raw and SmackDown wherever he wants. If he pops up on SmackDown, I would love to see the character dynamic between Miz and Killings, and how Killings may never have agreed with being Miz's tag team buddy and partner, being betrayed by The Miz constantly, and Truth always going back to him and singing the songs and dancing the dance and doing all this stuff. That is actually a feud I really wouldn't mind seeing if done correctly, because they have an entire history to pull from. You almost babyface The Miz in the whole thing, depending on how Truth is being used or Killings is being used, but Miz almost wanting to empathize or try to speak to Truth in a way to try and get him back so that he can work with his friend. He's losing his best friend, and you can also elevate this to a lot of the roster. Look at all of the tweets, look at all of the social media outpour R-Truth got when he was released. Every superstar you could think of was out there wishing R-Truth to come back. They were sad, they were heartbroken. You could have him, Ron Killings, interact with a lot of those people, that they were never there for him, that they only saw him as a joke, as a gimmick, like he said on Raw.
You think I'm a gimmick?
I'd love to see him interact a little bit more with Triple H. If Killings is just roaming around, causing chaos, doing kind of whatever he feels like, I'd love for there to be moments of him and Paul Levesque interacting and pulling the curtain back maybe a little bit. Heck, if Vince was still around, it'd be kind of perfect, because then you could have him confront Vince about how silly everything was, but you can use Triple H as kind of that, as that catalyst and that corporate representation of making R-Truth doing all the silly gimmicky stuff that Ron Killings never wanted to do. Doesn't mean Triple H is going to get into a fight or anything like that, but you can have similar confrontations like he's done with Kevin Owens in the past, where the two of them were shoving or getting close to each other. Same with Triple H coming out with Randy Orton and getting in the ring. And we don't know how long the contract is for Ron Killings. He could be on a Legends deal, he could be re-signed for 5 years, who knows? But if this is kind of his last run, we could see a lot of really cool, interesting stuff play out. But the one big name that I think a lot of people would be interested to see is how things with John Cena will end. Has it already ended? Is that kind of over, or are they going to revisit this whole thing now that it's Ron Killings and the champion John Cena? I can't imagine that Cena in the character is just going to want to forgive and forget and just let it go that he got hit by the belt and just move on from that, because now he's dealing with CM Punk and Cody Rhodes and everybody else. We know we have Night of Champions, and we're gonna have CM Punk versus John Cena for the Undisputed Championship. Seth Rollins looming around with the Money in the Bank briefcase. I don't see Punk winning, but you could have a cash-in by Seth Rollins. You could also have Ron Killings out there and get in John Cena's way once again. But maybe that's too much too soon. Maybe they want to steer away from Cena and Killings for a little while. We only have a couple of dates left for John Cena, and they got to make the most of it. They've got to get this Punk program done. We know Cody and Cena are going to ultimately collide one-on-one again, but I feel like now that we have this new Killings character, there's a lot more they could do. And yes, you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, dummy. Killings is maybe more of a bad guy. John Cena is clearly a bad guy. How would that dynamic work? The crowd is still going to cheer for him. I think that's also part of the point, is that Killings can play however he wants. He's just himself. If that means that he gets cheered for doing stuff, so be it. He's righting the wrongs. He doesn't forgive. Let's say we get to SummerSlam, and let's say that SummerSlam is going to be Cody Rhodes versus John Cena for the championship, the big rematch that they're gonna do. This seems inevitable, but for John Cena to lose the championship, he's been pretty well protected. One way that he could lose the title is if you have Ron Killings get involved in that main event. Killings could somehow cost John Cena his championship with a distraction, or leveling the playing field. What if you did end up with a Travis Scott coming out to involve himself in the title match once again? I don't think a lot of people want that, but I'm saying, it's WWE. Feel like you could get Truth and Cena once the title is off of John Cena, and you could get that match, but get a proper match. Cody Rhodes could pick up that Undisputed Championship once again. We do have the looming threat of Seth Rollins in the cash-in, and Seth could be going for the Undisputed title, not the world title. And if Cena loses his belt and Killings plays a role in all of this, you could set up a match for Clash in Paris. You also have Crown Jewel after that, then Survivor Series, and a Saturday night's main event. That's kind of the end of John Cena's run. Some people might say, give Killings the title, have him beat John Cena and take the belt off of him. They could totally do that if he was getting supremely over, but I still feel like they want to put that back on Cody, being the big marketable babyface for the whole company. But Killings could get his justice. He could get his story complete with John Cena. Any one of those final shows, he could get his hands on John Cena in a one-on-one environment and beat him. There's no title on the line, doesn't really hurt John Cena at that point, and it builds Killings even further. This could also act as kind of a spark or a way to transition John Cena back to a babyface. If he loses the belt to Cody at SummerSlam and he starts having to deal with Ron Killings, who's coming after him, everybody that has been on his side in the past, everybody that he turned on, he's had to deal with, it's all coming crashing down on Cena, you might start to see him feeling like he needs to right the wrong. And losing to Killings could be one of those things that starts to flip John Cena towards the end of his final run. And I mean, aside from John Cena, he's had other interactions. He's been involved with Judgment Day, Damian Priest. He's interacted with so many different characters and female characters. Along the road to get to John Cena maybe one more time, you get those interactions with The Miz, maybe a program there, Damian Priest, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes. He can feud and interact with everybody he needs to. But I do think that one of the final chapters for John Cena should be having to come face to face with Ron Killings. They could also write it in a way where it's the loss to John Cena, push Ron Killings to be set free. But now that he has been set free, where do you go from here? Feuds, stories, programs, what do you want to see out of Ron Killings, and what did you think of the promo? If you want to talk about Monday Night Raw with that promo, click this video right here and have a great day. See ya.